Hi, my name is Johnny Gifford. You're watching BCTV's Open Studio. This is a show where we bring in folks from the community to learn what's going on. Today we're here with the Windham County Lead Hazard Control Team and the Healthy Homes Capacity Building Program Team, which includes Sheriff Mark Anderson, the Program Manager Elisha Underwood, and Outreach and Intake Coordinator Emily Gibbs. Thanks guys for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, so we're all talking about lead hazard control here is the purpose of this interview. So Mark, please tell us about this program. Give us a 50,000 foot altitude view of what this program is.
Sure, happy to, Johnny. So obviously Mark Anderson, Windham County Sheriff. We applied for a grant from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Office of Lead Hazard Control, which is a mouthful, it was a $1.1 million grant to improve the capacity around treating lead in Windham County homes, to train the workforce, improve housing, and basically try to help make Vermont a more safe place to live, to enjoy, to recreate, and to work.
Tell us a little bit about what the program goals are.
Yeah, so you talk about lead contamination in homes. We're talking about paint. We're talking about places where people will interact with. A lot of people, when they were growing up, were told, don't eat the paint chips. Most people aren't eating the paint chips and they're still breathing lead in. So what we are working on doing through this program is training people to recognize lead hazards in their homes. We're looking at homes that are generally built before the 1980s. And as we find more homes that have lead in them, we work to help homeowners recognize it, to build out the ability to replace windows or door casings in homes where there's frequently lead paint, and ultimately connect them with services, trained contractors, and providers. Usually what we hear is that Vermonters lack the financial resources to do this work. And so the follow-on of this program is to identify sources of funding that make it possible for them to do it with a low investment from them.
Yeah, I mean, the housing stock in Vermont is so incredibly old, and I think a lot of people don't even realize what is beneath 5 layers of paint in their home, probably.
It's absolutely amazing how quickly we can detect the presence of lead in a home. And so with that, we've hired a staff, because I'm not an expert on lead abatement.
You aren't?
Apparently not. We've hired a staff, and I'd like to introduce Elisha Underwood, who's our program manager for this grant.
Hi.
Hey, Elisha.
Hi, thanks for having us. So Mark mentioned trainings that we offer free for the state of Vermont. So that is our first goal, to build capacity. And these 2 classes are held every month. And we work with various training providers throughout the state to provide these. One is RRPM. It stands for Repair, Renovate, Painting and Maintenance. And the other one is Abatement Worker and Supervisor Training. So the RRPM class is only a 1-day class. It's 8 hours, and they have a 4-hour hands-on portion. And in class, there are some hybrid classes, but they're mostly in person. And those are great for anyone who's a contractor, do-it-yourselfer, anyone who is disturbing paint for houses built before 1978. And then the other one is a 4-day course, 3 days for workers, 4 days for supervisors. And that goes really in depth with Vermont laws and the full methods for abatement. And that is available at least once a month.
And what other kind of abatement projects do you have kind of coming in the works?
Yeah, so right now we are building our policies and procedures. And so once we have a contractor pool built, which we have come a long way, we just started year 2, and we had before this project started, we had 2 contractors trained in the state. Now we have 11 contractor firms that are licensed to be able to do this work. And so once we have the people willing to do this work or able to do this work, we will be able to offer up to $30,000, including money for inspections for eligible applicants, and all of our eligibility and all of our applications will be on our website. And Emily, who is our outreach and education specialist and does the intake, she'll help people fill out the applications and know if they're eligible and just help them walk through the process. And Emily, I'd like to introduce you to Emily.
Great. Yeah, tell us more about sort of the nitty-gritty process of actually folks getting involved with this, Emily.
Yeah, so the first part of what we're really focusing on right now is getting contractors trained. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is spreading that message. And beyond that, we're currently developing our procedures, and so that will be updated on the website. The best way to reach us is through email, lead@windhamcountybT.gov.
It's an easy one to remember.
Yes,
Just lead at.
we try.
That's great. So you're working like directly with people who are interested in being involved with the program, and like I'm sure people have lots of questions of, how do I do this? How do I do that? And so tell me a little bit about your role and how you help facilitate that.
So a lot of questions we're asked with is what training is best for what groups of people. And so RRPM, it's really great for property owners, landlords, people doing work on their own DIY, really making sure that they're working lead safe. And then for contractors, it's a 4-day abatement course. And so just making sure that contractors in Vermont or who will work in Vermont know that these courses are free to increase capacity.
Yeah, I feel like awareness is always, an uphill battle, I think. There's so many different ways to reach people, and overall media is so oversaturated, and just outreach is there's so many ways to do it. So I'm sure it's not easy, but it's important work if people want to be able to, safely renovate their homes or mend certain things about their homes. So
I do want to add that the key to capacity building is to get stakeholders' input. So we're starting a steering committee this month, and they will help us be the key to building our policies and procedures. So we have individuals who are contractors, daycare providers. We have Kate Kirkwood, who helped us start this program. She will be the key to this steering committee and helping us build the policies. That we're really excited about, because that's part of capacity building.
Yeah, and I think that's like bridging the gap between the community and the county government in terms of what direction you should take this in and what services you should offer the people who actually need them. So that's great. So there's the elephant in the room, big question I got to ask, that why on earth is the sheriff's office taking this project on of all departments or government entities, Mark?
I'm glad you asked, Johnny. Very briefly, if we think about the different programs available, we have the state, and the state currently has an application, or I should say a program that they run statewide. We have towns. Everybody knows about towns. You can go to town meeting. What we generally find is that towns lack the capacity, and I mean, when I say capacity, I mean they don't have the staff. Mm-hmm. They don't have people. They don't have an office space for a person to work. We had to find space, computers, desks for Elisha and Emily to be able to do all these things. So when I talk about towns not having capacity, we're really talking about the bandwidth to do the thing. And then we have the state, which is often too big to focus on our little corner of the county. So why the sheriff's office? Turns out there's $1.1 million that was assigned for county governments. Vermont has very few county governments. In fact, we're the only one who's applied for this grant. And we saw it as an opportunity to help ultimately make our homes safer and to improve housing in Windham County. A lot of people I've talked to will say, like, this is unique. In fact, we're the only sheriff's office in the country that's ever applied for this grant. So why the sheriff's office? Not really for any good reason except the fact that we're an eligible grantee. We saw it as a need that targets two areas that I care about. One is public safety, happy to get into the details of that, but for the sake of today, I'll just acknowledge there's a public safety benefit to reducing lead levels in people's blood. And then the second part is public health. And while I'm not an expert on public health, we can acknowledge if we can improve housing in Windham County, we can make it easier for people to live here, which improves our workforce, which improves public safety. So all of these things very quickly become blended together. And so what I focus on is trying to find the right people to be on the team, even if I'm a unique partner as the sheriff with this program. It's also one of those things that we can provide the capacity, we can help our community, and we can make it safer and easier to live here.
It makes sense to take this on like a county-wide basis, I think, considering, like you said, the capacity of the towns and then the sort of larger portion of the state, which would be overwhelming, I guess, to take on the state level. You look at like New Hampshire across the river, and they all have county governments that are relatively well structured, funded. We don't really have that here. So if you're going to take any project on the county level, it makes sense it would happen on the sheriff's level.
It does. And if there was more capacity at the county level around focusing on programs like grant management or other ways that we could support towns, I see that as a huge opportunity for Win. So what are we doing? I think we're building out an opportunity for the state to look at, to say, these are ways that we can help obtain access to federal funds that we currently leave on the table. The state of Vermont receives a lot of federal funding, but it's usually focused to the municipal or the state level. And grants like these are generally designed to the county level that we've ignored. So there's more resources that we could access as a small state. And I think that most communities don't even understand how we can impact or bring benefit. One of the things, because people say, well, it's the sheriff's department, it's law enforcement, I like to call out, we're not doing things like code enforcement. I'm not an expert on construction standards. We're not fire marshals. We don't have the expertise on the building code. What we do bring is the resources to help people improve their homes, which is a voluntary program that they can participate in. So it's not an enforcement action from our part. In fact, we are really gearing into the proactivity of what we can do through this program.
Interesting. And so we talked about why it's important to do this on the county level, but why Windham County specifically? Like you're sort of, the oddball here, where you're the first county entity or sheriff's department to take on something like this. So why Windham County?
So it was somewhat clairvoyant. I attended a select board meeting to talk about the services of the sheriff's department in the town of Putney. And Kate Kirkwood, who was mentioned earlier, was there giving a presentation where she was trying to talk to all 23 towns in Windham County saying, could we apply for this grant? Now, again, talking about the access of county resources, a lot of counties similar to Windham County, as we look at demographics and building structures, a lot of counties similar to ours are getting $4 to $5 million, some as high as $9 million to do this type of work. Vermont has a $9 million grant for the entire state. So when we're talking about what's left on the table, it's that. What we saw as an opportunity is we know how to run a federal grant. We've managed them before. We had the ability to hire staff. We had the ability to pay for it through these federally funded opportunities. And so what we're doing is actually delivering an opportunity, and we're partnering with places like the Vermont Department of Health, with our local towns and their local governments to say, since you weren't able to do this, we're going to be a vehicle and a mechanism to help push it out. And at the same time, we're going to try to target the needs of those communities. Coming back to my original purposes from the perspective of the sheriff's office, if I can improve access to housing, I can reduce harm to public safety. Housing and public safety go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
The accessibility of housing, the safety of housing, but even just a shelter for a person, these are all very important factors around improving public safety. So
mental health, physical health, and all of these things are connected to each other, and they all, one can positively or negatively affect the other. So it's in your best interest, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. And what is the greater impact sort of statewide? Do you hope to set a precedent or your reach, do you think your reach will extend beyond Windham County through other sheriff's departments getting involved, or what do you think that impact is on the state level?
So the current grant we have right now is a 3-year grant that's designed to improve capacity around training contractors. And when we say contractors, I mean someone who can swing a hammer, put a window or door in, a painter, various companies that deal with the type of construction work to replace and remove lead hazards. The impact statewide, I mean, you heard Elisha speak about it before. We went from 2 licensed and certified contractors in the entire state of Vermont to 11 since we've had this program. We're working on adding even more, and really the hardest part we see right now is not having people for them to do the work with. There's a lot that goes in for the contractors to be certified, qualified with the EPA, with the state of Vermont's program. So we're here to help provide access to the training. We reduce or remove the entire cost of the training, which is an incentive for a local business. But we're also working with the state of Vermont's Lead Hazards Office to help improve the process which a contractor can become certified through the state of Vermont. Why is this beneficial statewide? Well, that's 11 contractors who can work statewide on these types of programs. Our program, while we're training, our focus is to improve housing capacity and safety in Windham County. All of these contractors will work throughout the state of Vermont, we expect. So while our future programs that we envision will be focused on the housing stock here, we know that they're going to travel across borders to help other communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unusual in Vermont to see a contractor drive 1-2 hours to a job site or something, which is crazy, but like people do it all the time. So yeah, you're really just equipping like this generation of contractors to be sort of educated and prepared to deal with something as horrifying as lead.
And it's also not just the contractors, though. One of the things, and for me, this is a learning experience because I'm the public safety guy when I go to meetings or conferences with lead hazard control folks. And so it's fun because I can talk about the public safety perspective, and we can bring in discussion around what are the hazards to youth, what are the hazards to adults, violence, and we see that from the law enforcement perspective. Whereas the public health experts are talking about the ways that it happens. I did not know, personally, as a person who has done this work on my own house, that the most likely people to be exposed to lead are people who do it yourself because they're not trained, they're not dealing with it in a professional capacity, they're not paying close attention to all the standards that a contractor who does it as their normal day-to-day would be doing. And so to recognize that I could actually be putting my family at harm because I didn't know that replacing that window was not as easy as just push it out. Mm-hmm. It's important to recognize the dust that we create as we're doing this type of work is actually part of the harm. It's not, again, eating the paint chips.
Yeah. It's there's so much in the air that we don't even realize. It's hard to actually tell sometimes. So this has been very informative for sure. Do you have anything else you want to add before we close out here?
I think the main thing is to say we're trying to develop our steering committee. If people are interested or they want more information on any of the programs, the training, or opportunities, contact our office. You can go to lead.windhamcountyvt.gov or reach right out to the sheriff's office and we'll connect you to our lead hazards office.
And Elisha, is there anything else you'd like to add about the program?
So just wanting to put out that with the capacity building is, yes, we're building a program for Windham County, but because we'll be able to focus on the needs in Windham County, that will open up a lot more opportunity for the other grantees to focus on the other parts of the state. So with the statewide grantee, they because the need has been really high in Windham County, we'll now be able to focus on that, and they can focus on other counties that have even higher needs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Emily, is there anything else you would like to add before we close out? And then also, if you could just remind us of that email that folks can use to reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just please reach out if you have any questions about grant funding or training. We're happy to answer any questions. The email is lead@windhamcountyvt.gov.
Cool. Well, thank you all for coming in the studio this morning. This has been very informative for sure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.